Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to another match reaction. It has finished Coventry City 0, Watford 0. We didn't do it straight after the game today. We wanted to wait a little bit and kind of gather our thoughts and have a little discussion on here and get your thoughts in the comment section as well. We'll try and read as many out as possible. Joined by Sam, Elliot and Sean making his debut on the live today. Sean, you all good, mate, after today?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, would have felt better joining on a win, but we're here and we're going to talk about it.
Good man. Right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll dive straight into it. We'll, let's get straight into it. Sam, initial thoughts on that game. You know, it's a little bit further on in today after the game, but it wasn't great, was it? Wasn't great at all.
Yeah, it was really, really poor. Particularly the first half, I thought was I'd go as far as saying dreadful. Just didn't really look like there was a proper game plan. We lacked an identity going into the game. You had some players pressing, some players sitting back. When we had the ball, we rushed it and didn't really have any imagination with it. So overall, just a really, really frustrating game. And I think it just further reinforces where this team really are.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, Elliot, today was the lack of direction going forward. I mean, there was nothing, absolutely nothing going forward. I think defensively, Coventry caused us a few problems, but I didn't think Backman had to make a really good save. It's probably saves you expect him to make. But going forward, again, lacking any sort of creativity, any patterns of play, any style of play. Is that for you the big concern at the moment is going forward?
Yeah, it was just, I think it was not matching the intensity of the Coventry midfield that caused the most problems for us. It was, I think Chalobah and Cleverley were okay at winning the ball back and maybe playing it out to the wings or wherever, but there was no real forward play, no real forward passing. Really poor. Like I say, I think it was okay defensively. I don't think Bayamou, the striker for Coventry, really caused Backman any problems. I think he had a bit of an off day. So perhaps we were quite fortunate there. And ultimately it was a case of we just didn't get going with passing the ball forward, moving the ball forward and creating any sort of attacks until about 15 minutes left, which is far too little too late.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Sean, just going back onto the lineup that Xisco put out, what was your initial reaction to it? Because, I think Xisco in the week, I think he mentioned something about this new system that he was going to implement, and it was the same 4-4-2. But it wasn't much. The outcome and the results and the product of the system wasn't much different. What did you make of the way we set it today?
I mean, I read the article by Watford Observer, and it was encouraging because I think this whole week, if it's the Andre Gray article, if it's the Andre Gray video, the Watford Observer article, there's a lot of talk about kind of owning up to like mistakes, and it felt like today kind of was a fresh start. But yeah, first 20 minutes and the lineup. I mean, when the lineup got announced, there was a lot of negativity, but even the first 20 minutes, it's the same away performance, like just typical Watford away from home. It was really disappointing. And he said that he worked on training of a new system. And I don't know if that means Will Hughes is still playing countdown with Clevs inside, because I don't know why he's not on the pitch, because we all know that it's common knowledge really that Will Hughes is one of the most creative players in the Championship, and he was one of our best players last season, and he's finally fully fit. And he's still not getting a chance. And again, it feels very similar with Ismail Assar with Harry Gracia, when we've finally got a creative player or a direct player, someone we've needed for a long time, and he's not even brought on today, let alone 7 minutes in central midfield. So, yeah, I think we'll get onto Xisco chat later, but I just feel like he doesn't do himself any favours when it's all bigged up that we've owned that performances haven't been good enough. We need creativity, and then creative players like Hughes and Zinchenko, etc., are left on the bench. So yeah, disappointing.
Yeah, Sam. A bit of an echo. Is that you, Sam, or is that Sean? I don't know. It might be you, mate. I'm not too sure. I just heard myself echoing. Oh no, it's back now. Here we go. Sam, for you with the setup that Xisco said, and it was this new system. It was the same formation. Will Hughes dropped, and no Zinchenko, who we said in the preview. I feel like we're repeating ourselves at this point, but Zinchenko, it's becoming incredibly frustrating, I think, for a number of Watford fans, how we're not seeing him play from the start. It's not fair on him just to give him cameos, in all honesty. And we're lacking the same problems, but we've got options to fix that. I don't get it. I don't understand. Can you maybe understand why he's doing that at all?
I've got absolutely no idea, to be honest, Jacob. I mean, we said this on our group chat earlier. We might as well just rinse and repeat every single week the same match reaction, and no one would really tell the difference because it's the same thing. My only thought is something must be happening, that we don't know about with Zinkernagel. Maybe it's a fitness problem. I don't want to say an attitude problem. I don't want to speculate because he's only been here for 5 minutes, but there must be something else going on that we perhaps don't know about as supporters, which is why he's not starting. And you just hope to trust the management that they are getting it right and just managing his minutes. But as Sean said, they're making it very, very hard to do so, and they're not doing themselves any favours by dropping the likes of Will Hughes. Yeah,
and Elliot, Hughesy came on, and for me, the performance improved immediately when he came on because he's playing positive passes. Again, is that a selection? Is that a part of the selection that you can't understand, or do you understand why he decided to go with Cleverley and Chalobah? But I thought that first half performance in the central areas was, I think it was Coventry dominated. All honesty, we were really passive, getting dictated to. In all honesty, but for you, Hughesy, what do you make of that situation? I was surprised to see him not start today.
The Hughes situation makes less sense to me than the Zinkernagel one. I know I've been someone that, like everyone, that is desperate for him to start. But if you've got Sema and Sarr performing, it is difficult to get out either on the left or the right in that team. And I do get that. And if he does trust Sema and Sarr more, that's understandable. It's more difficult for me to understand the fact that you've got Cleverley and Chalobah in the midfield who are, I think they've been okay this season. I think they've been very good in some parts. But against a midfield like Coventry's, where they've got Hamer and then they've got O'Hare coming back. They've got Matty James, who I think was fantastic today. Really, and Troy Dean even said you can't have him dictate the play. You can't have him control the midfield. I think we let that happen today. And I think you need someone like Hughes because when he came on, you could just see a complete shift in the mentality of the players, the style of the players. I think there was a huge improvement. And it's difficult to do that already when you've only got a few minutes having come on off the bench. So he has to start. He just has to. And yeah, like I say, it makes even less sense to me that he didn't start than Zinkernagel.
Yeah, Sean, that first half, I think I put it out on Twitter. I thought it was dreadful. I thought it was absolutely shocking. I think Coventry had the better of the opportunities. And to be fair, they were probably coming into half-time thinking, how are we not ahead? I think it should probably been 2-0 ahead. It's another slow start. It's another slow start away from home. Why are we why are we so poor away from home? Can you understand it? Because I think the thing but probably a better question, Sean, is the lack of intensity, particularly away from home. After the QPR game, it's a major concern for you. Is that the main aspect and the application that's the worry, or is it more the quality?
I've got a lot of worries, to be honest, Jacob. But the sense, I think it really is a sense of entitlement with this Watford team, which I can't stand, to be fair. I think, even with fans, and I think everyone's guilty of it when you've had an FA Cup final not so long ago and seen some of the best football we've had. But, football changes quickly, and Coventry are not a bad side. You can look at their league position, but O'Hare's a quality player. Hamer's been brilliant all season. Matty James was brilliant at Barnsley, who are knocking at the doors at the playoffs. And if Strieber got the results at the start of the season, which his team probably deserved, they could easily be above Borough, Bournemouth, us. Do you know what I mean? Their midfield is excellent. And when you need to start with intensity, which, he's often talked about intensity and fighting with a passion and
fight like animals.
Fight like animals. Yeah, that was the saying. Fight like animals. And, look, it's just away. I mean, we struggle to get it at home, even if the results are good. But away from home, it's seriously poor. And when you don't have positive players on the pitch as well, I definitely agree with Elliot. I think Sema and Sarr are brilliant wingers, and they've been brilliant this season. But yeah, when you've even got players like Zinkernagel, Pedro, Hughes, they've got quality and they're positive, so they'll bring that intensity. So yeah, to answer your question, it's both really, and just the misplaced confidence and entitlement. It's a bit. It doesn't bode well for how we start games. And then I think the stats 14 games we've gone into halftime at 0-0, which which leaves us with an uphill task when we're chasing the game and teams are sitting back, and then it's even harder to create. So. Yeah, it's not great.
I think the thing for me, Sam, is about it. Sean mentions about the the application and stuff, but we're so close to getting promoted in the sense that we're close to the automatic spots. You know, results went our way over the weekend in terms of Norwich dropping points, so we had an opportunity to make some ground on them. But the intensity, the application, the desire, the work rate, and I know that's not maybe the statistical way of looking at it, or it's maybe the tactical way of looking at it. Well, it actually is an element of the tactical, but maybe not the statistical way of looking at it. And you can't really measure that. But for me, recent performances, particularly QPR and Coventry, have lacked that effort, the work rate, the desire. Is that fair? Do you think? Is that fair? Or is it as a similar question to Sean? Is it more of a quality issue that you have a problem with in terms of the way we're going forward, for example?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the three things that you named, and on top of that, I think it's quality problem. I think it's not a case of us overrating these Watford players, but I think there's an element that they're not as good as kind of we thought they were. I think that kind of is overrating, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. But it's kind of both of those things. But for me, they just look scared in these sorts of games that we listed them in the preview, such as your Wickham away, I can't think off the top of my head, your QPR away, where we just look scared in elements of games where we really should be dominating the ball, dominating the midfield and creating chances. And that happened again today. I mean, we've mentioned they got some really good players in there, such as Hamer and
Callum O'Hare.
Callum O'Hare. I was really impressed with their right back, Da Costa, before he came off, and he put in a really big challenge on Ken Sema in the first 10 minutes. And I just felt that kind of scared the players. I think that's the best way of saying it. And they kind of all went into their shell. We failed to create anything, and I don't think they viewed it as trying to stay in the game, but they just didn't really look like ever coming into it and creating anything, which was really frustrating, because I think it further reflects not only an ability problem, but there's a confidence problem in this Watford squad at the moment. I don't want to make comparisons to 14-15, where we blow away teams like Fulham 5-1 away from home, or we go and win 4-3 at Reading. But perhaps a better example would be someone like Brentford today, who went away and won, what was it, 4-1, 3-1 away.
Even Wickham, they went away and scored 7, didn't they?
Exactly. And I'm looking at these teams who go to these games with no fear, backing themselves, that it doesn't matter what the other team do, we can, our quality will come through. And this Watford team don't really show that. And I think it just comes down to a lack of confidence and a fear within themselves.
Yeah. Is this, Elliot, for you, is this I think at Watford, we've been known for giving the manager a lot of responsibility. And I know this is a difficult question for you, because obviously with Cisco and everything, but is this a managerial issue? Is it a tactical approach, or is this players simply not taking responsibility for some of the performances in the last couple of games? There's been 2 really poor performances. 2 games we probably should be winning. 2 games we need to be winning. So is this the way we're setting up games, or is this the way these players are delivering the performances? Who's to blame in your eyes? I know it's difficult, but who takes responsibility for you?
I think everyone has to take a bit of the blame. The fact that it's been, although there have been different players at different points, it's been a head coach issue, but then it's been a head coach issue for about 5 or 6 head coaches now. I think some of the blame should be put on Xisco. I think people are maybe being a little bit harsh. I think some of it is justified, though, because he didn't set up right. The tactics weren't right today. They weren't right on Monday. I completely get that. And a lot of the criticism of him is justified. As for the players, they need to step up. They need to show that intensity that we're being told that they have, and the fire that William Troost-Ekong prophesied to us on earlier in the week. We just need to see a bit more energy. I think if you've got a team with so much quality going forward, you need to be one of those teams that just suffocates the opposition, plays their own way, and doesn't let the other team do what they like. So like we let Coventry play the way they want to play today. We let QPR play their own style. I think we do that a lot. If we play as a team that doesn't really, although we do our research, but if we don't really care about how they play and just play our own way and have our own identity, I think it's a completely different story, and we'd win some of these games. So I think we're, on the one hand, not giving them enough respect and not maybe considering their style enough. But then on the other hand, we're sort of showing them too much respect because we're letting them play their own way and we're letting them attack us like they have done today.
Yeah, Elliot, it feels like we're caught in a crossroads, just to add on to that, in terms of we're not going all out to outscore teams, and we're not going in this really low block and looking to hit teams. We're doing neither or nor at the moment. Like that approach from I think even under Ivic, to an extent, there was an element of this Watford team where we got caught in two minds between defence and attack. It seems like that is carried on, and a lot of people have said there's not a lot of difference in these performances from Ivic to Xisco, and the constant has been these players. So, is that a concern for you that we're not? I don't feel we have a lot of identity in our style of play at the moment, and surely we've got to find that quickly, really quickly.
Yeah, exactly that. It doesn't. I think it's fine if it's a transitional period, and I guess you could still argue that it is a transitional period. I think there's been enough time now between managers that we should start to see Xisco bed in this identity. And he said that they're still improving, they're still working on that, but I don't think I've seen enough so far. I think, like you say, it's a bit too Ivic-y, if that's the term. It's too negative at times. I think it's just, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but it's just getting that pass forward at some points where it's like, right, we just need to get it up. We need, not hoofing it, but we need to play it out to the wings. We need to utilise the likes of Semmer and Sarr on the flanks and utilising the skill that they obviously have because they've shown it both this season and in Sarr's case last season. It's more playing to their strengths because I think we've got a team of 11 individuals that are all good, but not really playing to their own strengths. It doesn't really make sense to me. But
yeah, Sean, it doesn't feel like we're really playing as a team at the moment. But for you, do we need to move away from this 4-4-2? Is it time just to maybe go to a 3 at the back, go even to a 4-3-3? Is it time to move on, or is it about maybe adjusting the system we have at the moment?
I think he's spoken about the 5 at the back, and I think it's a very common system. I think with identity, I know that Swansea City play like 5 at the back with wing backs, and when you look at some of the data, it's like Kiko Femenia is right up there, and Ngakia is right up there with the best fullbacks or most attacking fullbacks in the league. So obviously that would make sense. But the main thing is, as you say, it's identity. If we need to find a formation that brings our own identity, whatever that is, I think it's not necessarily we need XYZ formation. It's not like a set formation we haven't chosen yet. It's more imposing our own style, and whatever, like Nigel Pearson managed to do it, and for his brief spell, and it's, as you say, Ivic and Xisco, it's been very continuous. There's not been much difference between the two, which has been the most disappointing. So definitely, I think 4-4-2's run its course. But if it's 5 at the back, 3 at the back, whatever it is, I think we need to find a system, an identity, and a formation that works. And as Elliot says, it's not just Xisco's fault. I think a lot of different parties need to take like a part of the blame. But yeah, ultimately it does come down to the manager to find the system and identity. So in that regard, I'd say that is Xisco's role to find what works.
Well, before we get into a bit more on the game, guys, if you do going to enjoy the stream, please do leave a like on the video and comment down below your thoughts. We've had a bit of trouble with the software to get your comments up, but I am reading them through. And if there's any comments, we'll try and get around to them, but they won't be on the screen. So there's been a few technical difficulties with that. But yeah, please do subscribe to the channel. We've got more content coming up, hopefully in the coming weeks. A bit more positive than tonight, to be fair. But Sam, what let's just be brutally honest. What has to change? What has to change for you? No, seriously. I think we've just got to. I think people want to know. From someone like yourself who has been opinionated about some of the player performances, tactical. What for you has to change in order to see better performances and better results like today?
For me, sacking Xisco will do absolutely nothing. I think we'll see that kind of 1 game managerial bounce, maybe 2 games, 3 games, and then we'll go back to square one where these players lack any identity, lack any imagination, that kind of thing. Because for me, the common denominator is the players that these are. I mean, it's the same core of players that let down Javi Gracia, let down Quique Sanchez Flores, let down Nigel Pearson, arguably Hayden Mullins, Vladimir Ivic, and now Xisco Munoz. And yes, you can question these the manager's tactical decisions, and a lot of the time they have been wrong. Such as today, I thought Munoz got it completely wrong. However, because the common denominator in all of this is the players, nothing is going to change if we keep on changing the head coach. for me, I know it's much easier said than done, and now the transfer window is shut. I don't want to talk about transfers, but it's just about seeing out until the end of the season. If we go up, very nice. If we stay in the Championship, okay. But regardless of what division we're in, we need a complete rebuild within the squad. I think we need to get rid of all the bad eggs. I don't think it. I think that's a whole separate video on who we think the bad eggs are. But I think we need to kind of have a new core within the squad, some new leaders within there, and something just fresh to inspire us as fans and inspire the players as well. And for me, it's a player issue. I think Munoz is far from perfect. He's incredibly tactically naive and inexperienced, but sacking him, all right, it will change something for 3 weeks, but ultimately with this group of players, we'll be back to square one. So yeah, it's just it's disappointing to watch, because I'll be completely honest here. I used to get so excited to watch Watford, and I still do. And we mentioned on the preview the anticipation of the lineup at 11:30 today, thinking that we get this new system with Zinchenko and Hughes coming in. But then you just see the team and the 4-4-2 again with the same two strikers, and I'm just sat there like, do I want to watch this? Of course, I'm going to watch it because I'm a Watford fan. But even 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, I'm just sat there like, this is the most uninspiring, disconnected, just the most difficult Watford team to watch in my lifetime, and it's so frustrating. And for me, it's the players, and something needs to change in the summer. We need to rebuild this squad.
Elliot, Sam touched on the strikers there. I think someone mentioned in the chat about Glenn Murray, who the Nottingham Forest were away at Wycombe today. I think he scored 2 goals, if I'm correct.
Yeah, two of their 3.
Yeah, 2 of their 3. He scored I actually watched one of the goals. A really good finish. Just lobbed the keeper. We haven't seen that this season. It's 2 goals from open play. It does beg the question: why isn't he at Watford? Why isn't he delivering that at Watford? I think that's a whole different, situation. But the fact of the matter is, in your eyes, I think Paritza coming back was a positive today. Getting him on the pitch because he's been out for a while. But this striker situation again. Actually, a bit just to ask you a question, Elliot. For you, is this a striker issue, or is this the service they're getting?
It's so tough. And then it's also, is that as a result of the formation, or is it as a result of...
There's a number of factors in there, but
yeah, it's so difficult. I don't think anyone can deny that Andre Gray is not performing up to the standard that perhaps we would hope. I think we've done that to death a bit. So, with Deeney, I think he's done better in this deeper role. I think he had a couple of difficult moments there. I think he had his moments as well that were quite positive, but for the most part, I think both of them didn't really cause any major problems. Obviously, there was the one header that Deeney had that hit the crossbar. So as for whose fault it is, because that's what it ultimately boils down to, I think the midfield needs to be a bit more forward thinking, quite literally. They just need to play it forward a bit more, a bit less one.
But
sort of
Elliot,
one at times, it's hoofing it as well.
Elliot, it's not that I disagree with you. I agree, but it's not the players that Chalobah and Cleverley are. But I know I genuinely don't blame Chalobah or Cleverley, because I don't think they could be giving any more on the pitch, and I think both of them are playing really well at the moment. It's just the frustration is the fact that they're not passing it forwards, because that's not the sort of player that they are. We need I don't know, Domingos Keener in there, or Will Hughes in there, or Philip Zinchenko in there to pass the ball forwards. And I don't blame Chalobah or Cleverley for not being forward thinking. That's just my opinion.
Just to add to that, Sam, and just maybe offer a different point, is I watched Chalobah and Cleverley quite closely in the first half, and there's 2 things I took from it. Number one, their movement off the ball wasn't great. There was a couple of times where Cleverley would basically say to Troost-Ekong, just bypass the midfield. Whether that's to do with the pitch, potentially that's a factor. I think, but it's the same for both teams, and I thought Coventry played some good direct football, but they weren't offering a lot of angles to the 2 centre-backs, and they were coming under pressure. And the second thing was, both Chalobah and Cleverley were so far apart from each other. And often we say to Andre Gray and Troy Deeney, they need to be closer. But the 2 midfielders have to be closer as well. I mean, there was a few times where Chalobah was at one side of the pitch and Cleverley was at the other side of the pitch. So despite us all having a go at Cisco, and I definitely think there was aspects for me that has to be scrutinised. I think the team selection, I think continuing with this system, I think we all know as Watford fans, that has to change now if we want to be successful. But I also think the play, I think Cleverley's been probably one of the better performers this season, but I still think those 2 weren't great. And I think the players have to take responsibility. If I'm completely honest, because you say about the player quality, but Xisco's put that team out, regardless of what you think of it. But I'd argue that's a good enough team to beat Coventry. Would you say? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in that respect.
No. I think it is a good enough team to beat Swansea, but I mean, when I said that, I think they were very good. I'm not talking about the season. I think we've given Chalobah too much slack, and the same goes for Tom Cleverley. I think Cleverley's incredibly underrated, and he brings something to the team that no one else can really offer at the moment. What I'm more saying is that it's not down to the players. I mean, for Chalobah and Cleverley, I'm talking about. It's not down to them, the fact that they're not passing it forwards. It's the fact that that's the sort of players that they are, and it's down to Munoz who selects them. And I don't know. Perhaps I was saying perhaps Will Hughes should have played instead of Tom Cleverley in the middle today, and Hughes would have got the ball more forward. But I don't directly blame Cleverley or Chalobah.
Yeah. For that. Okay. Sean, I want to get you involved here, mate. On this point, the midfield for me today got overrun again. I think there was maybe not as much as. Well, I think QPR, we did get overrun at times. I think QPR played really well. But again, Coventry obviously identified that. They had an extra man in the middle. It got overrun again. Is that I think we could have done more to stop it. But surely at half-time, we've got to put an extra man in there. But I think you might have said before that you thought Deeney was playing a little bit deeper. So do you think that was the plan from Xisco to play more of a 4-2-3-1? Or do you think it was a 4-4-2 with two defensive midfielders in Cleverley and Chalobah?
I think he's played Cleverley and Chalobah as defensive midfielders because he's playing Deeney to support the striker. He's not playing him as a 10, maybe as a, I don't know, for example, like a Ramsey who comes in, and although he's a 10, he works hard. I don't think, although Deeney works hard, he's not expected to, even if he does put it on his shoulders, he's not expected to drop that deep and come into midfield and help that side of the game completely. But yeah, with what Sam's saying, I think it does come with, if Hughes is on there, we are looking more positive. We're looking to play more forward, and I think he has set up for Deeney and Gray together. But yeah, I don't know, with Deeney and Gray, they play together, and as you say, Cleverley and Chalobah need to become closer, especially if you've got James and Hamer in there, who both have quality and both will work hard, plus O'Hare in there as more of an advanced midfielder. That's kind of where a lot of the problems came, I thought, in the first half. Yeah. And I think Will Hughes has a good mix if he wants to play a 4-4-2 or with two defensive midfielders. Cleverley and Chalobah are great. They work hard, and Chalobah's better on the ball, and Cleverley provides a bit more work rate. But Will Hughes really is the full package. He's excellent on the ball, and he's more positive. He can create more, but he also has a tackle in him. He also works his absolute socks off. So yeah, if he wants to play like how I think he's trying to play with Deeney and how he's trying to utilise Deeney, he really, really missed out with Will Hughes. And I don't want to keep crying about it, but it's just so frustrating knowing that he was one of our best players last year. He's finally match fit. He's been in and out, but when you've got him, you've got to use him. And I just don't want him to move on and us look back and think, if we'd have used him here, could it have been the start of something? Or if in a different system and we used him there, like, could we have? Because in the league, on paper, we're still right in there. We're not far off these teams. Norwich down. It is surprising. But then also, I think if you look at all the teams, no one has been consistently like brilliant. When we got promoted in the 14-15 season, it felt like there was 8 or 9 teams who were just winning every single week, and where with this, even as brilliant as Brentford look now, and their trajectory is probably to win the title, there was a large period where, although they went 13 undefeated, it included a lot of draws, which should have been losses, and it's marginal gains. So if you do have Hughes and you do find a system, and you do have, you do impose your identity now, like this, despite it being February, it's not too late to bring it back and have a promotion push. But it does require change, which he's been talking about, and I think that's why it was so disappointing to see a very similar performance with a very similar team put out on paper.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, no. I want to throw to Sam in a minute, Elliot, about the paper comment on paper, because it's been, I think even the Sky Sports pundits today, Don Goodman said on paper, great team, but they're not going to go up if they put in the performances today, and they're not going to go up. They're not going to go up through the playoffs if they put the performances today. So but before we get onto that, Sam, Elliot, I when Hughesy came on, it was a little bit better. I think when Stipe came on, he was a bit of a handful. Number one, to those guys, well, I think Stipe, we've got to manage him, but is it positive for you that last 15 minutes we were the better team? I think we looked the most likely to score. Having said that, though, Coventry looked a bit of a threat on the break. So it's a positive and negative, isn't it? Because yes, we improved, but the bar was pretty low. But at the same time, we didn't offer a lot throughout. It's like we're almost, I described it as we're almost waiting for Coventry to score in order to kick us into gear. It just felt like that. I don't know about you. It just felt like we were waiting for a moment to click. But again, it didn't happen.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack from what you said and a lot to sort of look into. And I think Xisco has to look into it before the next game. I don't think there's a midweek game now. So that's hopefully motivation to work on things in training and maybe make up for the mistakes that have been made this week. I think you're right that it was an improvement in the last 15, but I don't think that's good enough. I think it's more of it actually makes things more disappointing overall to know that there is the potential there and that we bring on Hughes and the game not necessarily completely changes, but there's an absolute improvement. And that is frustrating to know that there was that potential on the bench the whole time. I tweeted before kickoff that the bench was one of the strongest we've seen this season, having the likes of Hughes and Zinkernagel, having Stipe Peritza back. I was pretty shocked to see him come on because, typically we've seen this season with players coming back, they've been very, very slowly integrated back into the fold, and he was straight back in there after his injury. Yeah, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. I think from that, what I gather is on paper, we are a very good side, but also if you look into it a bit more, there are a lot of flaws there. It's tough, but I think the last 15 minutes show that there is still that capability, there is the potential to do better, and hopefully that's not just something that the fans are noticing. Hopefully that's something that's been pretty well known everywhere, which I think should be. I think everyone should see that Will Hughes played well and that Zinkernagel has potential on the bench, and there is more potential in that team than what we've seen. So surely that will change next weekend.
Yeah, it does feel there's potential with this team if we play them in the correct system. I think Mitchell Martin, I've just seen a comment from him, and I can't pin it on the screen because we had a few difficulties, but he says, players are systematic. We're asking a player like Chalobah, a ball winner, a shield, the anchor, to play in a 2 and all of a sudden find the confidence to be a progressive midfielder, never his game. That's
what I was saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't blame Chalobah. He's doing what he does well.
So this is more of a tactical issue, Sam?
Yeah. I'm trying so hard to back Xisco, but he's really not helping himself. As Sean said earlier on, I've never wanted a Watford manager to do so well as Xisco. I mean, I know Elliot's got a good relationship with him. He interacts with the fans. he interacts with the fans on social media, and generally, we keep on saying he just seems like a good guy. And Jacob said that the biggest compliment we can pay to him is that Graham Taylor would have approved of him. And I've never wanted a Watford manager to succeed more than him, but I just feel that with the Pozzo's tendencies and the fact that we're still in with a shout of even automatic promotion, I just think that the ice is really, really thin for him, and it's more upsetting than frustrating because I love the guy, even though I haven't been to a game with him in charge yet.
Yeah, I really do hope it works out for Xisco, but the pressure is building on him, and we know the culture at Watford. We know how it works with managers, and I think after the QPR and today's performance, it is a massive couple of games for him. Bristol City and then Preston. I think the Preston game is probably the away game where it's going to be even more pressure with the away form this season, which isn't entirely his fault, but that will be a really interesting one because Preston are a good side. And I guess potentially on paper we're expected to win against Bristol City, but the way we're playing at the moment, it's not the case. Sean, I wanted to ask you about Xisco. We haven't actually got your thoughts on him on the channel, but what have you made of him, and do you think that the criticism and the pressure on him at this moment is fair, or do you think it's slightly over the top?
I do. I think it's fair. I do think it's fair. As as you say, I think we all want him to do well. It looks like an excellent guy, but yeah, he's just underqualified. I feel like he's out of his depth. He, as you say, just doesn't feel like he helps himself. He does certain things that we can all, love, and especially in a time like now where it's so easy to feel completely like disconnected with the club when you're not going week in, week out. He does the small things that really means a lot to a club like Watford, with stuff like Graham Taylor used to do, and we've seen from Javi Gracia, etc. But yeah, tactically, it's not been good. It's just been more of the same. I think I tried to kid myself after the Norwich game, after the first game, because although it was an excellent result against an excellent team, it was a very similar performance. I was just thinking, okay, like it's a good result, we can build on it, but things haven't really progressed. I don't even think they've regressed. I just feel like we're at the whole season, we've been waiting for certain players to come in or something to click, and it just isn't happening. And I don't have faith that it will happen. I feel like if he's speaking so much about change and he's tried different formations, different players, and still we can't see even an identity, or even, with Ivic, it hasn't been great, but at least we could see there was an identity, there was something he was trying to do. We haven't really seen anything from Xisco Munoz, which is just hugely disappointing and frustrating as a fan watching it week in, week out. But then the argument is, I definitely agree with Sam. We're stuck in the same situation. If we get rid of him, and we've got a reputation for being trigger happy, and I think since the Gracia decision, I think every decision, including that one, since we've sacked Gracia, hasn't really turned out to be it doesn't feel like it was the right decision, or we didn't give them an appropriate amount of time. I felt like we did with Silva. I felt like we did with Mazzari and Kiko Sanchez Flores, but I feel like from Gracia onwards, we haven't really given him enough time. So I don't know. I'm not the chairman, but it is. Do you let him try and change formation and let him impose his ideas on the team, or not? I feel like either way, he's just out of his depth, and I don't have faith that things will improve. So yeah, a little bit on the fence, but I mean, I just feel like no matter what the outcome is, things are not looking bright.
Interesting point Sean makes. Some really good points there about Norwich, right? And I don't want to go back to that game, Sam, but correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it feels like he had a blueprint there. They executed the game plan pretty much to perfection with a low block. Look at it on the break. I thought Gray stretched the game. I thought Deeney looked bright, and we should have scored more in the first half. I think it was a really good game plan. It wasn't the prettiest, I don't think, but there was a game plan there, and we executed it well. Do you think that game has made Xisco think that's the way he has to approach games? Because he did very well with that approach, but actually it's turned out pretty quickly that you cannot do that against teams like QPR. You can't do it against Coventry. Do you think that early win has actually been a bit of his downfall?
Yeah, 100%. I just want to say something though before I answer the question. I want to talk about Xisco communicating with the fans on social media. But some of the stuff I've seen, people going into Xisco's private messages and abusing him for not starting Hughes or Zinchenko, and that criticism is justified. But to have a go directly at him, and then people complain when the link between the club and the fans is broken, and eventually if people carry on abusing him, he'll just stop looking at these messages, and people will be back to square one complaining. So just he's doing. I've got no doubt he's doing his best, and we know he's a top bloke. So just if you've got nothing nice to say, just don't say it to him, because I think he probably knows. That there's frustration. So I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair, mate. I think I think it works both ways. When people message him, everyone's going to be happy about it, but then don't disrespect him. I think in that way, you can have your problems. I think with the tactics, you can have a problem with how he's setting up the team. But I think that's overboard doing that. Personally,
it's gonna be the same people complaining when there's no link between the fans and the club, and it's going to be those same people would have been the ones who were abusing Xisco in his private messages. So that's just my thoughts on it. But answering your question, I think that Norwich game, because Xisco didn't have that much time with the players beforehand, I think that game plan was very much designed to stop Norwich. If that makes sense, like stop Buendia getting in between the lines and allowing Pookie and Cantwell. Did Cantwell play? I can't remember. To try and get in behind our wing, that space between the wing back and the centre half. And I do think that because that performance was so positive, it perhaps did leave a blueprint for Xisco, thinking, do you know what? We're playing like this against top of the league. This is the way forward for us. And my problem with that is that, as I said, it was very much a game plan designed to stop the opposition rather than a game plan to create an identity for ourselves. And it very much seems, I'll bring it back, I think the players look scared to establish themselves and express themselves as players. So 100%, I think that Norwich game has influenced tactical decisions.
Elliot, for you, is that the same? And you know, Xisco's only been here for how many games, but it does feel like that early win against Norwich, and because it was such a big game, I think it was his first game, wasn't it, in charge of Vicarage Road? There was a real feel-good factor. I remember there was a togetherness on the touchline. The scenes at full time said it all. I personally think that game has said in his mind, you know, because there's something that doesn't add up really. He was described as an attacking head coach, but we're seeing these tactical approaches. But it's the same tactical approach that we saw against Norwich, which worked. So do you think, from your point of view, that Norwich win has had an influence over he's setting up games? Do you think that's actually affected the way he's going into games?
To an extent, yeah. I think for me, he does just excel more, and his team will play better when we play against a more attacking side, against a side that will be up for the fight. And although Coventry did attack us today, they were very solid at the back. They didn't really leave any gaps. They're a very well-drilled side, and they caused problems for us in the midfield. I think we saw it against Barnsley as well, where they were straight into us from the off. It was very attacking, and then we sort of found little gaps here and there to pass it to Sarr and Gray. I think he probably is a better head coach in games like that, and that was something I asked him about sort of 2-3 weeks ago, just saying, is it easier to play teams like Barnsley and Norwich than, it was just after Millwall actually, yeah, I said, than playing a team like Millwall who don't attack, who do sit back. And he argued that in the first half, that wasn't the case at Millwall. They were a bit more attacking and it was still tough. And I can't remember the exact answer that he gave, but it was sort of saying it is difficult to play against a side that is defensive and that is so structured at the back. But that is where the plan B will have to come in. That's where things will need to change. And I think you're right that the Norwich game may have sown difficult seeds in terms of his reign as head coach. But I think that's where we'll see his capabilities as a head coach if he manages to get over that, change things and deal with a different type of team and manage against a type of team that is perhaps more defensive or that will cause us different problems. Perhaps it will be things like shooting from outside the box, which we don't do very often, particularly not on target.
The two fullbacks today, I think it was only those two guys. Yeah,
exactly. And I think just having a contingency plan, having a plan B is perhaps where the changes may lie. And we may see that in the next couple of weeks against two sides that are higher. I think they're higher up than the two sides we've played, but they'll still want to probably get a point from us rather than maybe risk it, go too far and try and take all three. Although we've shown that we're up for, we're there for the taking in the past two games. So maybe that mentality changes.
Sean, just to wrap up on today, thank you to everyone who's watched, by the way, loads of you watching, and make sure you do follow Sam, Elliot and Sean on Twitter and their socials, get involved with their content. They do some really good stuff online, so make sure you go and follow them. Sean, for you, what a big question, but what does Xisco need to change heading into Bristol City? Is it purely personnel? Is it tactical approach, formation? What for you as a fan needs to change going into that one?
I think it's got to be tactical. His failure to adapt game by game is probably his biggest downfall. As you say, like the setting up, like he did against Norwich, against every team. It's been a long time, I think, that since we've had a coach that sets up game by game. We simply don't do it. It's that we kind of know, we try and kid ourselves, go, oh, who's going to play, but we know what the formation is. We know the sort of players that are going to come in and out. The only real rotation tends to be the fullbacks and João Pedro in and out. The midfield kind of largely stays the same. So I think it has to be tactical. He's got an extra week or so to train a different system that he. And do you know what? I'd love for him to go for it. I'd love for him to put forward his idea with his passion, have an idea and try and implement it. Like, I don't think any of us are complaining about something not working for the sake of it. If you put something forward, a formation, a different system, and it doesn't work, I think we can kind of, definitely at this stage, I think we can kind of accept that. But it's a failure of change. I think we've seen a very similar Watford team throughout the season, and then although results for the most part have been good, and we can be happy at the end of the day, we kind of wake up and we think this isn't the way you get promotion at the end of the day. So I would like to see him change something tactical. Personnel, I've spoken enough about Hughes, but I think if he wants to keep Adini and Gray, it's okay. Like they are at the end of the day, they are proven at this level. Like, they've proven they can do it. It's just trying to get that out of them. Even if they're not the exact same player, they still have qualities that they can bring to this Watford team. It's just getting out of them. And I think that is, like I said at the start of the stream, I think that's Xisco's job to do that. And yeah, hopefully he does.
Fingers crossed. Sam, to wrap it up for you, what needs to change going into Bristol City?
I think it's echoing what Sean said, but I think that tactically the changes comes a consequence of changing the personnel, which kind of needs to happen. I think we can pretty much, I don't think Zinchenko will start for the foreseeable future. I think for me, Will Hughes is the main one who has to come back in. I keep on saying this as well. I wouldn't mind Ben Wilmot coming back in. I think Truce looks more and more shaky by the game at the moment. Today he left. What's that striker called again? Birmu.
Birmu.
Yeah. He lost Birmu in the first 2 minutes. Not that it was pretty solid, but I'd like to see Ben Wilmot being given a run out as well, because he's also a positive player. I know he's a centre half, but he likes bringing the ball forward. But I suppose we'll touch on that in the preview. But also, something else I just thought of that I just, because it's been very negative. Just a couple of positives as well that I thought of today as well. Is first of all, I thought Dan Bachmann again. Superb. Didn't have an absolute wonder save to make, but everything he had, he held.
Yeah,
and that's something that Foster kind of didn't really have occasionally.
He did get lobbed by 25 yards anyway.
Yeah, no, that's the main one for me. But Batman did look solid today, and it's credit to him. We've spoken enough about him on the channel, but I'm buzzing for him as a backup goalkeeper. Secondly, I thought the fullbacks did well today. Jeremy Ngakia on his comfortable right-hand side, and Adam Messina, who I was really surprised to see. And we spoke about not rushing him back, and I was surprised to see him in the starting 11, but he did really well. And I just hope that it's not too soon that we're starting him. There's talks of us bringing in another left-back as well, perhaps with a fear that Messina is injury prone now. And the last thing is, it's really good to see Stipe Peritza back, because I know he didn't really touch the ball when he came on, but he kind of offered something else for us when he did come on, something different to what Gray and Deeney were offering. So for me, those were the main positives for me. And
yeah, absolutely. I think someone put Bachmann had glue on his gloves today.
He did.
Hopefully not.
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
he held it so well. He just looks so comfortable. Like,
he did look good. I really like Daniel Bachmann. I think every week he seems to be growing in as one of the shining lights of this Watford team so far. I'll tell you what, Elliot, looking ahead to Bristol City. It's so tough at the moment, the amount of games in the Championship, as you all know. But to wrap it up, what has to change? Just simply, is it as simple as personnel? As I mentioned, I've asked the same question to those guys, but is there any difference to what the guys said?
Not really. Yeah, no, I sort of echo Sean and Sam. Yeah. It's if the formation, if there is an idea with the formation change, if there is an idea of changing the approach slightly so that we're a bit more positive, we've got more capabilities, just putting the ball forward, bringing the ball forward. Maybe that's having a three-man midfield. I know technically we did today, if you count Deeney as the one behind Gray rather than next to him, then there is technically a three-man midfield. But yeah, just something that would add a bit more in attack. I think we're doing well enough in defence that we're pretty okay there. And And bringing in, I think personnel-wise, Hughes has to come in. I think Sarr may need a rest. I don't think he's looked leggy as such, but he has played a lot. So maybe Zinkernagel can come in there. That seems like the natural change that can be made. I'd like to see Stipe Peritza, if fit. I don't know his complete condition. I'd like to see more of him. I think he provides something different to all the other strikers at the club. I think João Pedro needs to be a regular starter now.
He was good when he came on, wasn't he, Elliot?
The regular switch of Gray starts, Pedro comes on with 20 minutes to go. Pedro starts, Gray comes on with 20 minutes to go. It's that constant rotation. And as much as I think Gray should have chances and should be given the opportunities, I think Pedro needs to be seen as the first choice now, because I think he's comfortably ahead of Gray, comfortably ahead of Deeney. And if you're just taking it as goal scoring ability in open play,
he's a top goal scorer, isn't he? I mean,
exactly. So if you're just looking at it from a striker, if you want a goal scoring striker, he has to be the one that plays up front. So yeah. I'd like to see João Pedro in, Hughes in, Zinkernagel in, and hopefully Kiko back as soon as possible. Although Ngakia did play fairly well.
Yeah, I agree. I think just to wrap it up, I thought, as Sam mentioned, we went on a positive. I thought Batman played pretty well. What he had to do, he did well. I think Messina had a pretty good game at left back. I think the two fullbacks did well. I think it was a marked improvement on what we saw against QPR. But certainly, if we make the right changes, then fingers crossed we can get the win against Bristol City. That is where we're going to wrap up today's stream, guys. Thank you so much for watching. After what was a difficult performance to watch, I think, as Watford fans, a big thank you to Sean for coming on today, and hopefully to get him onto more match reactions very soon. Elliot and Sam as always. But if you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18. Follow Sean, Sam and Elliot on their socials. As I said, they do some fantastic stuff, so make sure you go and follow them. Subscribe to the channel.
Big stuff coming as well.
Subscribe. Yeah, big stuff coming. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can get some good content out for you guys and the results pick up. But thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers.